What's up, everyone? It's Isaac Smolden, the production manager here at My House. Just a heads up that the next 2 episodes of My Voice are a 2-part series with our case manager, Bryan Fields, who's going to be taking over My Voice after these 2 episodes as the new host. So make sure that you are staying tuned 2 weeks from now to catch part 2 of today's episode. My Voice is a chance for those who have struggled with addiction, homelessness, depression, and domestic violence to have a candid conversation about their life experience, current situation, and future goals and aspirations. Every episode is conducted anonymously to facilitate a comfortable and safe place for guests to tell their story. We now join a My Voice conversation, already in progress. Okay, Bryan Fields,
yes,
case manager,
yes.
My House, new host of the My Voice podcast after I stopped doing it for this episode / 2 episodes, however long we talk. If you were, I feel like we've used the deserted island one too much. So if you could play with any professional athlete, living or dead, any sport. I mean, obviously, it's got to be like team sport or partner sport. I don't know if you're a big tennis guy.
Oh, God.
But
Serena Williams.
So any professional athlete, living or dead, who would you play with and why?
Oof, that's tough because I
mean, what sports did you play growing up?
I played basketball and football.
Okay.
And like my idols growing up were Jerry Rice and Kobe Bryant. And I think I would have to pick Kobe just because like I idolize Kobe and for like a lot of different reasons, not just like his skill on the court, but just like his determination and his drive and his like, I'm going to be unapologetically me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just like that killer instinct and just like, I will not give up.
But then also he's probably going to get you at least a couple points just by being on the same playing surface too.
Absolutely.
So there's that benefit as well.
Yeah, he'll carry the whole team. I don't even got to do nothing. I'll just cheerlead. I'll get some pom-poms.
It's like the team that they surrounded LeBron with at the Cavs. Just like, I've never heard of any of these people, but they have 12 points a game because LeBron's just
dominating.
On the court.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That was, okay, not to totally derail us, but I was having this conversation with someone the other day about Kobe Bryant's death.
Yeah.
And how that affected them. They're not a basketball person at all. They don't watch basketball. They don't watch the Lakers.
Yeah.
They just said, man, like the fact that someone at that level, that was that level of iconic in the sports world when I was growing up, like in my formative years, the fact that he was just gone, like wrecked me for some reason.
Yeah. No, it hit me hard because like, so my idols was Martin Luther King, Muhammad Ali, and Kobe Bryant, all for different aspects of like their leadership qualities. And so I just always tried to like embody that, like, I'm not going to give up and I'm going to, push through. And that didn't always turn out that way. Yeah. Spoiler alert. That's not how it went for a long time. I remember growing up and I would like read their books and articles and just everything that I could and like consume myself with that mentality. I remember being outside in the winter practicing free throws, you know what I mean? In the dark, fingers are bleeding. Like, I don't even care. It wasn't like something that like rocked me to my core or nothing, but it was something that was like, whoa.
I think for me that might have been, I mean, definitely Kobe's up there just because of how he passed. Carrie Fisher was my big one. Yeah, I'm such a huge Star Wars shill. Yeah, and that I know you are too.
Yeah.
And that one I think really, it's just like whenever it's someone at that age, it's like that person just isn't supposed to be. That's my childhood. Like that person's just not supposed to be gone. Yeah, I'm supposed to be hearing from my parents about how some actor in some movie I've never seen died. Yeah, not like Princess Leia.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Sidebar over. Where were you born, Bryan?
I was born in Ketchikan, Alaska, down in southeast Alaska, a little small fishing town. of about like 8,000 people or something like that.
Been there once. Sat on their tarmac for 40 minutes on my way to Seattle.
Yeah.
I wrote for their newspaper. I've never set foot in Ketchikan. I've just sat on the tarmac.
I definitely recommend it, dude. It's a beautiful place. It's hard. It's a hard place to grow up in as a kid that like wants to be adventurous and like explore things, you know, because there's not a lot of things to do.
Yeah.
But it's an absolutely beautiful place, especially like fishing is amazing. Hiking, any of that type of stuff is super awesome. But
I can see it really embodying kind of the typical Alaskan experience. Yeah. Especially if you grew up outside of Anchorage, small town mentality, like all the stuff to do outdoors.
Yeah.
Was your family from Ketchikan or did they move there?
So they're from Prince of Wales, I guess, originally. But so I don't know. So like it's kind of hard to trace my family history because I was adopted.
Okay.
When I was, I think, 2. And so you'll hear me in the story talk about like my mom and my bio mom. When I'm talking about my mom is technically like the woman that adopted me, but she raised me. You know what I mean? It's who I consider my mom and my mother. And then I just preface bio mom so you know who I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Type of deal. But yeah, they were from Prince of Wales, which is an island like 3 hours by boat away. Still very like remote, like small, like native villages. Yeah. And
so you just said you were adopted at 2.
At 2, yeah.
Your biological parents, how much do you know about their background? I mean, 2 is like so young that you're not knowing what's happening in person.
Right. So
it was the moment.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was an open adoption for my mom. My dad, I have no idea. I've never even seen a picture of the man. Like I have nothing. I don't know any of his side of the family, nothing, never met him, never talked to him. Absolutely nothing to do with him. My biological mom was in and out of my life, I think, until I was about 13 when I finally had like enough and just said, I don't want nothing to do with you anymore.
Okay.
There was a lot of, from what I understand, there was a lot of drug use. You know, she tried to get sober for a while and kind of kept falling back off and battled that for a long time.
So I'm assuming you go through OCS then.
I don't think.
Was it OCS?
I mean, I was in foster care for a short amount of time. So I think she started the process when I was a year old. And then by the time I was 2, I was placed and then adopted.
Okay.
And I was placed at first as like a temporary placement. My mom, the woman that adopted me, didn't necessarily want me, which sounds messed up, but it wasn't that she didn't want me. She was just going through a different transition in her life. Like all of her kids were growing up and moving out of the house. Her husband had passed away in a car accident, and she was like grieving that and kind of trying to navigate that, and just wasn't really in a place to take on a new young child.
Yeah.
But from what she would tell me was she just, I mean, they talked her into like doing a visit, and then it was like, okay, this kid is ours, you know, type of deal.
I feel like we were talking about this last week, some of the stuff from your childhood after you were adopted. With, you mentioned that your mom's kids were older.
Yeah.
How did you grow up with them in the house at all? Like how old were they when you gotten adopted? So
my brother, I think, was 16. So I got 4 siblings. Oh, they're going to kill me because I don't know all of their ages. But it's a good thing because
once you're like over 25, young. I feel like it doesn't matter, right?
They're still young in my eyes too, right? So like that's a good thing, Crystal. Don't be mad at me. My sister Crystal was considerably older. So was Robbie. Marcy, I think, was just getting ready or had just moved out. My brother was around for a few years and tortured me and did all the things that older brothers are supposed to do.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear a younger sibling finally admit that for once, because mine still isn't over it. So I'm glad that there's hope for me that in his 30s he'll finally acknowledge that, hey, maybe before that, maybe mid-20s. You never know.
Yeah.
But just acknowledge that everything that I did was fine and that he should just
move on. Yeah.
Right.
Suck it up. No. Yeah, no. Yeah, so they were there in and out. I don't know. It's hard to like really remember. Like a lot of that stuff is like a blur to me.
Yeah.
I think there was some stuff that happened that I'm not like aware of. I've tried to like work through trauma and like go through therapy and stuff, and some stuff is a blur and some stuff is like just completely like blacked out, and some stuff I remember like super vividly. And I just remember like the house was usually always full though. Brothers and sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, like it was always like this home family like atmosphere. There was a lot of chaos in that though. You know, there's like drinking and partying and yelling and fighting. And at one point I got taken out of their care and put back into foster care for a while, which in my brain, like I remember that as like a week. And when I had talked to my mom about it, I was actually in foster care for like a month and a month or something like that, or a month and a half or something. I just remember it's just like this crazy memory that I have of like sleeping in this like loft area with like a bunch of beds and just being terrified, you know, and just not really being able to comfort myself or understand why I was there. Or that was
how old were you at that point, do you think?
I think I was like maybe like 4 or 5.
Okay, still pretty young.
Yeah, very
definitely
young.
An age where you, one, like you just said, you're not sure of what's happening, but then also as you're processing it and getting older, you just, I feel like a lot of our clients that have lived experience in the foster care system like that they all say the same thing is like, that's just a blur or it's blacked out. Like it's like a biological response to that trauma.
Yeah. Well, it's really hard to like, for a child, especially like that young, to try to process that and it's something that like I've had to try to process like my whole life, where it's like, how is it that the woman that, you know, is literally supposed to love me more than anything in this world not here with me? You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's one of those things where it's just like, you can't, I mean, even as an adult, I was like, this doesn't make sense to me.
Right. So you never knew your bio dad. Was there someone that filled that role for you at all as you were growing up in that family?
Yeah. I mean, my brother really did. I mean, my brother, like I said, he tortured me and did the brotherly things. He was like a brother dad though. You know, like he's the one who taught me what like work ethic looks like. And he's the one who taught me, you know what I mean, what respect looks like. And I remember being a kid and starting to get into lots of fights and him telling me like, you know, just because you can hurt somebody, Brian, doesn't mean that you should. Like different things like that, and teaching me life lessons. My sister's ex-husband tried to, you know, mentor me and be like a father figure in my life too. And my mom tried to do like big brother, big sister once my brother had moved out.
Sure.
But yeah, I think for me it was definitely like my brother, but he was never like my dad. You know what I mean? He never treated me like he was my dad. He was just a really good older brother.
Right. You had told me a story about, and we don't have to keep this in if you don't want to.
Okay.
You had told me a story about crossing the border with your family when you were younger.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good snapshot maybe into what those years were like. Maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, I think it is, because it just kind of, we were like crazy and like dysfunctional in our own way, but it was like all about like our intentions were always well, like, you know what I mean? Like, so what happened was my sister was getting married in Anchorage. We had moved. So, okay, we missed some stuff. So
back us up.
Okay. So I was born in Ketchikan, and then when I went into foster care, somehow I ended up in Anchorage, and that's where I was adopted, was in Anchorage. There was supposed to be at one point a reunification with my biological mom.
Right.
And then she like skipped town and ended up going to Ketchikan, and then we moved back to Ketchikan. But my sister was getting married in Anchorage, and I don't know what happened. I was too young to understand like why we didn't have tickets or what the deal was. I don't really understand what was going on, but we had my grandpa's truck and with a little canopy on the back of it, and we had all of our stuff in there. And after we got off the boat, me and my 2 other brothers crammed in there and drove to Anchorage to get to my sister's wedding. And so so like that says like, we're super dysfunctional, but at the end of the day, it was like, we're gonna do whatever we have to do to be there for my sister. You know?
I because my parents have foster kids, right? I think they're a lot, again, not to generalize, but that lived experience is true for a lot of youth that are involved in the foster care system or come from families where it's yeah, like it's not normal, quote unquote. Like you're right. It is probably dysfunctional, but at the end of the day, the motives behind it are pure. Like you're just doing what you have to do to be there for your sister, for your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although it definitely leads to just some crazy stories randomly when you're talking about crossing the border and just like, oh yeah, I think I laid down in the back of a truck.
Yeah, I remember my mom knocking on the window like, keep it down. I'm like, okay, I don't even know what we're doing, but here we are.
So as you got older, your siblings are out of the house, and you're starting to go to elementary school, middle school, I'm assuming. And is this all in Ketchikan at this point?
This is all in Ketchikan at this point. My biological mom is like in and out of my life again, and I'm going to school in Ketchikan, but I'm having a really hard time fitting in. I got bullied a lot as a kid, a lot of racial stuff as a kid.
I imagine that in a small town like that, it's probably...
Yeah, there was this kid that I used to fight. Like, we fought every single day, dude, for like a year. So I had lived across the street from my school, and I'd be like over at the school playing after school, you know?
Yeah.
And he would catch the bus from his school to that school and then walk to his house. And he would get off the bus every day and just start throwing like racial slurs out there. And I would lose it. And I would me and him would fight like every single day. It was ridiculous. He was like my arch enemy. And I don't think we tried to repair it like when we got older, but I don't know what his deal was. I'm assuming there was some stuff at home for him or whatever, but that's really like a lot of that happened throughout, elementary school. I was one of, I think there was 3 other black kids in my school. And so, it was really, I don't want to say it was challenging. Like I had my friends and stuff and there was some good people that I met along the way, but it was difficult at times and I didn't understand and to being adopted, trying to understand like all of that and like wanting to just fit somewhere and not feeling like I fit somewhere led to a lot of like just feeling of uneasiness. And that's where like my love of sports like started and like my addiction. I'm serious. I say it all the time. Like that's where my addiction started for me was when I picked up basketball and I picked up football. Cause then it was just like, I finally had something where like you couldn't deny me, if I showed up and I did what I was supposed to do, you can't deny me that I fit here cause I'm doing my job, you know what I mean? And I'm playing hard and all of those type of things. And so I fell in love with that and I just ran with that super hard. And what sucked though was like I did get pretty good and I was doing good, and then I found drugs and then all my sports ambition, it was like just gone, just immediately gone, just fell down.
So what did that look like for you? When did that all begin?
So I don't know. It's hard to, so like, if you want to talk about like first drink, I think I had my first drink when I was like 7, technically.
Wow.
I was like waiting so like my mom and my aunt were like drinking or something and I'd be like wanting to be the helper and I'd go help them with beers and stuff and I'd sip a little beer or something. Cause to me, it was like normal, there was a lot of heavy drinking when I was first growing up and like I say that, but my mom, she did do a lot of heavy drinking when I was growing up. And then I don't know, something switched in her when I was like 8 or 9. And she just like, she stopped drinking, stopped partying, got a really good job. Did all the things that you do as an adult. It was pretty something that I took for granted at the time, but something that I look back at now for inspiration all the time. So like all that stuff was normal for me. Me and my cousin would steal my mom's shot glasses and we'd pour pickle juice in them and like pretend like we were taking shots. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like act all drunk and stuff like that. But when it really like took off was when I was about 12, I started like actually like drinking and smoking weed. And then it wasn't long after that I was stealing my mom's pills. My cousin was stealing his mom's pills. And by 13, I was hot mess, getting in trouble at school, fighting all the time, really down bad and lost in school, sports, family, anything that had to do with anything was absolutely out the window. And it was once I found drugs, like I had found that thing I was searching for my whole life. And like I belonged and these people accepted me but it was a fake exception, like they accepted me because I could steal some muscle relaxers, or, you know what I mean? Like, it was bad, you know, like, I mean, I still, like, some of those people, I barely talk to a lot of people I grew up with, but some of them are very good people, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't think they intentionally did it to be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to use and abuse Bryan. But, you know, I think it's just like human nature, you know?
There's a lot to unpack there, I think, because you're talking about looking for that sense of belonging, and the fact that, you know, you did stick out in your class, in your school, and then you're being bullied because there's something different about you, that there's something to point at.
Yeah.
And this whole time, you know, you also have the fact that you're adopted. You don't have, you know, like a father figure to lead you through that, really explain to you what's fully happening, how to cope with. I mean, that's just brutal.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you know, you have some of these activities normalized, and I think just like with someone who is maybe a little bit older and falls into addiction, it's the same thing. You're just looking for a rational. You're looking for something that is going to provide you with a sense of belonging, that's going to provide an escape, that's going to provide a sense of normalcy and comfort. And obviously you're looking for it in the wrong place, but it's not. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not an irrational decision,
right?
Like it's coming from a logical place, of you searching for all this, But then on the other hand, the fact that you were so young, I mean, I imagine moving forward, that's going to have some kind of long-reaching consequences compared to someone who maybe falls into addiction later in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it, the turning point for me was I'd come up to Anchorage. I came up to Anchorage every summer to visit with my sister, and my biological mom had moved back up here, and she had been in and out of my life for my entire life. She would forget to pick me up at the bus, and like my mom tried to really worked hard to try to let my bio mom have like a part of my life. And she would fall short a lot. When I was 13, I'd come up here to visit my sister, and my bio mom was up here. The first night that I went to stay with her, she went out with her friends and left me with my biological sister and the neighbor's 2 kids. I remember just feeling like that kid all over again, and just feeling like completely abandoned, and like you don't care about me and you don't love me. And there was like so much anger in that, and that fueled a like 13-year addiction right after that, because it was like, okay, well, if you can't love me, then I'll find the thing that does love me. And that's where like that thought process really came from and really started. And yeah, I mean, I think for any kid that's looking for escape, like obviously I'm not sitting here promoting use drugs and stuff, but like I'm saying, I understand, you know, when you're that young, it's hard to find the thing that's really going to help you cope with like so big of emotions and feelings, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, it was really tough, but
it's a huge weight and responsibility almost that you just shouldn't, you know, in a perfect world, no 12, 13-year-old's going to be having to shoulder that. Yeah. So I imagine high school, your kind of freshman, sophomore year is not, didn't necessarily get better from age 12 or 13?
No, it got a lot worse. So age 13, we went through like a hard hit it and drinking and like doing all the crazy stuff that I was doing. I actually failed. So like I have technically not completed a grade after 8th grade.
Wow.
Or after 7th. 7th was the last grade that I completed. So 8th grade, I went off the rails and I failed every single class that I had, all Fs. Which was insane.
Takes dedication.
It's insane to me. Like I was in PE, dude. I was in PE and failed PE, man. And I would show up to PE because I like PE because we'd do weight training and stuff, you know? Like it was bad. And so we did all that. And I was an angry kid then too. I was like, had all that anger.
I mean, rightfully so. Like that, yeah.
I went through that, and I remember this is part of like that dysfunction, but good intention, right? My mom they were like, hey, we're going to seriously have to like think about holding Bryan back because, you know, I mean, he's failed the entire 8th grade.
He failed PE.
Yeah, he failed PE, man. And it was crazy to me because everybody always around me seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. And they would always say that, like, you have so much potential, Bryan. I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. So they told my mom if I went to this alternative school that they would move me on to high school and I would go to 9th grade. And then at like the very last minute, my mom enrolled me back into K-High. So like I just kind of like slid through. And that's how I passed. Yeah, that's how I passed 8th grade.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's I mean, honestly, beat the system, I guess. Like, I didn't realize that worked. This is not legal advice or anything.
No, don't
necessarily
do that.
Do that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, she did stuff like that all the time.
So
so we go into high school, and it's way worse than 8th grade because I'm doing a lot more pills now, and I'm drinking at school, and I'm smoking at school, and like I'm not going to school to go to school. I'm going to school to get high.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just getting really bad. I'm getting suspended a lot. I'm fighting a lot. Getting my first couple minor consumings. I ended up with like 10 minor consumings by the time I turned 21. And that's definitely not like a brag either. That's just like, that's how
he's
like
actually got a ring for
each
one.
For each one.
Like
Tom Brady.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous. But so I started getting like in a lot of trouble, and I got on the juvenile probation officer's radar because I cussed him out.
That'll get you on the radar.
That'll get me on the radar. And then like a week later, I had like scared this kid by like, he was like fighting his girlfriend or something, and I told him to back off, and they ended up giving me an assault 4, and I got put on probation.
Good intentions,
but
once again,
yeah,
here we are.
Yeah. This was a hard lesson. These were hard lessons of like, yeah, you can have good intentions, but your actions got to speak louder than the intention.
Right.
But so I ended up getting put on probation, and I was too far gone to like really care. And like, I still just kept trying to push the limit, got in trouble, got arrested a couple more times. They put me on ankle monitor.
How old were you when you went on ankle monitor?
I was 14.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're really speed running this whole like process.
Yeah. And so I was 14 on ankle monitor. I had went to go live with my sister because my mom didn't know what to do with me anymore. She's like, he's just not listening. Like, it don't matter what we do. But she was still very protective of me. She was my mom, right? And so like I remember like the PO would get like mad, dude, and he'd be like, do you want to go to jail, Bryan? I'm gonna send you to jail. And I used to like, my mom's face would turn red. Like, don't you dare threaten my baby type of deal. You know what I mean? Even though like I'm like super in the wrong, you know, it's just mama bear is ready to come out. And I'll never forget watching her ask him in this meeting after he's like grilling me. She's like, what would happen if we like left town? And I don't know if I should be saying this, but we're running it. And so he was like, well, you know what? I honestly think that would be very good for Bryan, and I would consider dropping all the charges. And so fast track like another month, I'm still messing up, and like I'm like thinking I'm so cool and smoking weed next to my ankle monitor, like, oh, you go get me.
Was Snapchat around back then, or you just had to do that?
No, we had MySpace, dude. It was MySpace times. Yeah.
That's definitely something I could see being posted on Snapchat by a 15-year-old.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And so I remember my sister, she like came in, she's like, come on, pack up your stuff, you're leaving. And I was like, what did I do? And I was like so sad. And she's like, I got in the car. They didn't tell me anything. And they took me up to the juvenile detention in Ketchikan. And I was like, what are we doing? Like, I thought I was going to juvie. And I was like, oh my God. And they still aren't telling me anything. They're like, come on. And so we go inside, and he like tells me to lift up my leg, and he cuts off my ankle monitor. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, what is happening? I'm like waiting for him to arrest me, and he's like, all right, you can go, man. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, okay. And so I left, and they brought me up to my mom's house, and my brother's like packing up my mom's van. And I'm like, what the heck is going on, dude? And my mom comes out, and she's like, so we're moving to Juneau. And I remember just being like so mad. And I was like, what do you mean? I have all my friends here. How can I move to Juneau? I hate Juneau. So I got in fights with a couple of like,
well, good insight for hating Juneau.
That's fine. And so I was super devastated, but we got on the ferry the next day, van packed, all my stuff is packed. And I'm like sitting there pouting around the ferry, and we're sitting there eating dinner. And she was like, okay, so while we're up here, I have to work. And I was like, okay. And she's like, yeah, so I have meetings over the next week. And if we don't find a place by the end of that week, then we're coming back to Ketchikan.
Oh, my God. So, again, good intentions.
Yeah, good intentions, but swing and a miss. And so that I went on vacation for a week, and I came back off of ankle monitor and off of probation.
There you go.
Yeah.
I guess that's all. Again, I guess that's all it takes. Like, who knew? Your mom's like, she's the champion at gaming the system.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. So she'll do whatever she has to do to protect her kids, and I mean, she's shown that over the years for sure.
I'm assuming that eventually this is not sustainable.
No, it's not, right? Because like, I'm not seeing these as blessings. I'm seeing these as like, ha 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 ha. You guys are stupid, right? And so like, I remember still like vividly, like the first day I came back to Ketchikan, I like waited until school got out, and I walked into the K-High like I was like the biggest, baddest dude.
Because you couldn't post it on Snapchat.
No, because
you had to walk it.
Yeah, exactly. I did the Conor McGregor walk. Like I was like, "What's up?" And I remember Mr. Rath was like, "Brian, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "I'm home, bro." And yeah, I remember feeling so cool, and things got a lot. Yeah, they somehow got worse from there. I started drinking even more. I started smoking weed and attempting to smoke pills, but I was doing it wrong.
You're 14, I guess it's a hard process to figure it out.
So, and then like I had been chasing girls a lot, but then I fell in love. And that was...
Man, nothing goes together better than narcotics, alcohol, teenage hormones, and love.
Yeah, that was a bad time. So I fell in love with this girl who was like, she was like in foster care and in and out of juvie and stuff. Just my type, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, now you're speaking my language, lady. And I started running with her, and my mom was trying to get me away from her, and I just wasn't.
That made you want her even more.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, right, whatever. So I was chasing her around. She ended up running away from her foster care, and I had a door to my room. And so I snuck her into my room, and like she lived with me for like a month. Yeah.
Good intentions.
I was trying. And then she went to jail. I was all sad about it, and my mom had made some like sly comment, and I freaked out on her and said some things that I wish that I could take back, and I left. And this was when I was 15, and then at that point she didn't necessarily kick me out, but I also wasn't welcome back.
Yeah.
And so at 15, for the next 2 months, I was homeless.
In Ketchikan.
Man, like 2 months doesn't sound like a long time when you like just say it, but like as a 15-year-old kid, like 2 months felt like an eternity. You know what I mean?
To a suburban 15-year-old, 2 months feels like an eternity.
Yeah.
Let alone someone who is homeless on the streets in Ketchikan, which I'm willing to bet is probably not the greatest spot to be homeless.
No, I mean, there's not like resources. There's
right.
You know what I mean?
Ketchikan.
Like, yeah. And so, you know, like it got to a point where like now I'm like breaking into stores and I'm like robbing stuff, I'm trying to survive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I remember I was stealing from this like fast food joint so that I could get,
which shall remain nameless.
Yeah, for sure. So I could get food so people would let me stay with them, because I stunk, man. I had like the same pair of clothes. My mom ended up putting my stuff on the porch, and Ketchikan rains, you know, like every other day. And so it got rained on and was all nasty. And yeah, so like it got to a point where like even the people I was partying with didn't want me in their house. They're like, nah, bro, like you stink. You can go somewhere else. And I remember just like walking the streets, man, just like 5 o'clock in the morning, because I was too proud to sleep outside. So I just walk back and forth through town, which only takes like 20 minutes. And I would just do that all night long, and I'd get picked up by the cops and they'd let me go. And I just did that song and dance for a while. And then it all came to a halt when my mom called me, and my buddy had let me stay with him, and I had showered and I got a new pair of clothes, and my mom somehow got a hold of me and told me that I had court in a couple of days. And I was like, what do you mean I have court? I didn't like, to me, because I was like, I got all these tickets, but I wasn't like, what is court? Like, I don't have to go to court. That's weird, you know? And so she's like, yeah, your probation officer called me and said, I'm like, I'm on probation again?
Is it
like,
the same probation officer?
No, it's not. Okay. He's gone by this point, but it's the lady that he trained.
Okay.
So I don't know if she remembered me, but it felt like it. It felt like it. So then I go to court, and they try to let me like live with my sister for a little bit. That doesn't work out because I'm still doing what I'm doing, and I'm drinking and drugging and doing all the things. And I end up in juvie for the first time. And that starts a 2-year process of in and out of juvie and treatment, which was probably,
just back and forth.
Yeah, just back and forth. So I went to juvie, and then they put me in what they call RYC, which is an amazing program, but it's like a behavioral program. And I was rebellious, and I wasn't ready to behave. And so it wasn't a good fit for me.
Yeah.
But they do a lot of things, like shout out to RYC. Like they do amazing things for people or kids in the community in Ketchikan, help kids graduate high school and go on to college and do all kinds of cool things if they're ready and willing to do that.
Yeah.
But they tried to have me do that, and I just wasn't having it. So I would get kicked out of there, and they'd send me back to the detention center, and then I'd go back to RYC, and that happened for probably about 6 to 8 months.
And were you in Anchorage at the detention center, or?
No, so I haven't got there yet. So I was in Ketchikan in the detention center. They have a detention center there. So I would go between that one and the RYC program, and they would try to put me in like the outpatient drug and alcohol treatment, which I would, bluff my way through. And I was like in RYC, like chugging Robitussin, because I went through a really big Robitussin phase. It was just, nothing had changed, right?
Is that like a My Chemical Romance phase? A little more serious than that?
I don't know. It was just, once I had gotten into drugs for the first time, like it was like, it didn't matter what it was. I huffed Axe at one point. That's not my proudest moment.
Is a bold strategy.
Yeah, man. Like I would do whatever I possibly could to get high. Like it didn't really matter.
Is it more about the effects of it at that point, or is it just more about the action at that point? The fact that you're determined, like everyone's telling you, like, Brian, you got to stop drinking, you got to stop smoking, you can't be huffing Axe, like, and you're just like, screw you, I'm gonna huff Axe if I want to.
Yeah, pretty much, man. It was like, I don't know. I think parts of me like had felt like cheated by everybody, and you know what I mean. Like it was just like, you're not gonna tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna live my life, and I'm gonna do what I want to do, and nobody's gonna stop me until they did. Right. Like it got to a point. So then I got kicked out of RYC for the 3rd time, and I was a hellion in RYC, man. Like they have like a point system, and I was always like 500 negative, and like
like Harry Potter houses.
Yeah, man, it was bad.
10 points from Brian.
Yeah, see, it was like you would get like stuff like that, and so then they sent me to Juneau. And I got put in like what they call like lockdown for 30 days because they said I incited a riot in the detention center, because in the detention center they told us they locked us down early and said we couldn't have our shower. And this is one of those moments where I'm saying like, no, you're not going to tell me what I can and can't do. And so I start banging on my wall, and I'm like, I want my shower, and I got the whole unit to do it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I think this is what like really led me to McLaughlin, because then I went I think it was like 2 or 3 days later, they sent me to Juneau, locked me down in a cell for like 30 days. And then they were like, you need to do an eval. I did an eval, and the dude really like twisted my words. It really sucked really bad. I remember my mom being hurt because I had like identified her as my adopted mom but I was trying to like explain to him, because like it's like very confusing when I go back and forth between my bio mom and I just say mom, and like they're like, wait, are you talking about this mom or that mom? Right. And so like I identified her as that, and like just a lot of little things that he said in there, like he made it to where like I was suicidal and like all this stuff. And so,
and meanwhile you do have actual treatable behavioral health, mental health, substance abuse stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
But they're just slapping more stuff into there, which is muddying the waters. And I mean, that also is not doing you any favors as far as any sort of road to recovery at this point.
No, I mean, it felt like they were just like, they didn't know what to do with me necessarily. Like mental health would have been amazing. And it wasn't until I was like way older that a judge even like recognized that.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 2 or 3 years ago that I was diagnosed with depression. Yeah, that whole situation, like I definitely like it was hard to get over because I felt robbed. They did my eval and they came back and they said, all right. And at this point I'd been to one treatment center, and that was RYC, and to the detention center. And they said, we're recommending a B1, which is 1 to 2 years in McLaughlin.
Wow.
And I remember, man, like even now, like it's like, God, man, like why? Like I get it. Like, and that was like a really big moment for me where like something shifted. Oh, this isn't just a game.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. That's the yeah, for sure. That's exactly what it was. And like, I remember trying to give my mom hugs with shackles on, you know what I mean? And like, and just being like, dude, how did we get here? You know, like I knew what I had done, and like, but it's still like, I couldn't add it up in my head. And I was like, oh my God, I'm about to spend a year or 2 years in McLaughlin. And McLaughlin's not, I mean, it's not the worst place in the world. There's some bad stuff that happens there for sure, but it's not like Alcatraz or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that bad. But for like I felt like I was robbed of like some of what could have been like the best years of my.
It's your glory days.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And so yeah, they sent me there. And I remember being there with kids that were like beating up police officers and all kinds of crazy stuff, man. And like,
man, I just huff axe.
Yeah. They were like, what'd you do, Brian? And I was like, I got a bunch of minor consumings and I got kicked out of treatment. So here we are. And I remember like vividly stating like to my counselor, who wasn't a counselor at the time, like, dude, I don't belong here.
Yeah.
This isn't where I'm supposed to be.
Again.
Yeah.
You don't even belong.
Yeah.
Like, you're still not there.
Yeah. I'm still not somewhere I belong. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't put that together till just now, but yeah. And so I remember yelling at him and crying and like, you don't understand. And they would say, I understand. And that was when I got like the seed planted to me that, you know what, I want to help people, and I want to help kids that are like me, because there is a grave misunderstanding with kids like me. It's not necessarily that I want to do these things. You know what I mean? Like for me, this is the only way I know how to live.
I'm glad you're stopping here, because I actually wanted to hone in on that really quick, because if your whole life up to this point, you're 17 at this point?
Yeah, 16, 17.
16, 17. So your whole life up to this point, in 16 years, you have, like we always talk about, peer support, lived experience. Yeah. Like, and when I did my youth mental health first aid training, they always make a big point of like, for me, Mr. Communications podcast, the podcast guy, as Mike would refer to me, and Michelle in most meetings, the podcast guy is. So what you don't want to do is pretend to be like, oh yeah, dude, I just totally understand.
I get
like,
it, man. Yeah,
man, huffing axe, like walking on the streets for hours at night. I understand what you're going through, man. Yeah, because like I don't.
Right. But then, even somebody with lived experience, man, I could have a kid sit across from me and tell me my exact same story. And I will don't know. And I will tell him, I said, you know what, man, I don't know how you feel right now. I can relate to some of the things that you're talking about, and I'm ready to help you if you want to do something different. But I never tell him like, oh, dude, I get that. You know, like that's,
But when it comes to relating, and at the very least for you, a lot of people in that position, like, even if, like you said, even if you've been through the exact same thing, they don't want to hear like, oh yeah, man, I totally get it. Because to them, this is their life. Like perspective is reality. This is their life. They don't want to hear about how, oh yeah, I also went to McLaughlin, like blah, blah, blah. But for you, when you're having those conversations, the fact that you were OCS involved, you were adopted, you had all of these life events and instances that even if, man, like you don't have to relate to that person, but I have to imagine, I guess the question I have for you is how does that help you now in your position as a case manager? Like, what does that, obviously, I imagine that the reason why you're in this field has a lot to do with this whole history. And I'm sure as we continue to move forward, some of that as well. But it's like case manager born in a lab.
Yeah.
Like,
I was born for it. Yeah. I mean, I think what it allows is it's a good thing and a bad thing all at the same time for some reasons, right? Like,
right.
It allows me to empathize and to maybe not feel what they're feeling, but just to understand what they're feeling. And it puts me in a position where I have skin in the game, right? And so I may not know exactly how you feel. I may not know exactly what that was like for you because everybody experiences everything differently, right? But I have somewhat of an understanding of what that is like. And so now knowing what that is like and knowing how bad that feels and knowing how bad that hurt me and how bad that put me back and pushed me down and made me feel like I was nothing, I'm going to go 120 miles an hour for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to give this every single thing that I have. And we're going to try to make it to where, you know what, you're sitting in my chair and you're in a position, maybe you're not in like this field or something, but you're in a position where your past isn't defining you anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think if I didn't have that, I don't know how I could show up every day because this job is hard. You know?
So let's, unless you have any really cool McLaughlin stories, let's fast forward to, so at what point were you released from McLaughlin? How old were you when you exited there?
So I was 17, but I was like only 4 or 5 months away from my 18th birthday.
Almost 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they released me. I was going to go in the Army and then like things didn't work out that way. And I went to go live back with my sister because my mom had moved to Prince of Wales and she was living on Prince of Wales Island and I didn't want to live on Prince of Wales Island. And so I went and lived with my sister and I started working on my GED and stuff. And my sister made, again, good intentions, and she tried to really be a level of support for me and love me. But there was points in that period of time where it felt like I was still in treatment and like I was still in McLaughlin. And all she was trying to do was create some structure so it wasn't that I just went. But for me, like that's how I felt. And that's how I like interpreted it as
right.
Like, and I just wanted her to be my sister. You know what I mean? And so it was hard for me. And like, I was doing really good. Like I stayed sober. I was working out every day. I was running and I was doing all this stuff and I was working on my GED and I just kept feeling like I was just like everybody thought that I was going to fail and that I was going to do all these things and they were waiting for the other foot to drop. Eventually I was like, all right, if you're waiting, I'll drop it then. And so I ran away, drained my bank account, hosted this big beach party, got arrested. Like I didn't even make it a day, dude. Like I made it
at
that
the
night.
Beach party?
Yeah. So I went to the beach party, drank, came back to town, stopped at Tongass, was peeing on the dock and got picked up.
There you go.
And so then they were like, I was 2 tests away from getting my GED.
Oh man.
Yeah. And they were like, okay, Brian, so here's the deal. So they brought me back to the detention center. And they're like, you're going to take your test here. And I was like, okay. And they were like, and then we're going to release you to RYC again. And they're like, if you mess up in RYC or you fail these tests, we're going to hold you till you're 19. And I was like, bro.
Is it the GED test?
Yeah.
So.
And I was like, bro.
Is that, hang on. I have to like reconcile with it. So it's like an advanced game because it's a GED. So it's a little bit past this. It's like an advanced game of are you smarter than a 5th grader? It's like, are you smarter than a 12th grader? And if you're not, you're going to jail.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's what happened, man. And I remember just being like, oh, I did way worse on my test than I think I would have done.
Yeah.
Cause I remember like literally like visibly sweating.
I would be, you could put I like to think that I am pretty book smart. Like if you gave me a GED test, I like to think that I could pass it.
Yeah.
If it was, Isaac, do this GED test. And if you fail, we're going to put you in McLaughlin for a year.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly could not tell you if I would still be sitting here right now.
I don't think it was the best move by them, but it was good intentions.
Good intentions on the other side. Maybe a little bit of an overcorrect the other direction on that one.
Yeah.
But did you pass the test?
Yeah, thankfully I passed the test. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of My Voice. For local services here at my house, please call 373-4357. That's 373-HELP.